Well, Amanda, thanks for coming into the office today to visit with me. So, well, first of all, I'd like you to just tell me a little bit about yourself, some of the basic information.
Well, I'm 27 years old, and I work for a company. I'm in sales. So I go around to different organizations and try to get them to buy our computer software packages. And let's see, I'm also married. We don't have any kids, but this is my second marriage. So my husband has a child from a previous marriage. We get along pretty well. We have kind of differences in tastes. He likes to go hunting, and I kind of prefer to stay home and do, crafty type things. And but we still have plenty that we do together. I've recently been just having a lot of really weird feelings and a couple of kind of strange incidences happening. And after seeing my medical doctor and getting on some medication, it's kind of helped to take the edge off, but I kind of thought that maybe I should try counseling and kind of talking through what was going on and see if that helped some more.
Okay. So, could you describe a little bit more, some of these events some of these things that have been happening here lately?
Well, the major one happened about 6 months ago. My husband and I were at a music festival, and we were at a concert for, a band that we wanted to see, and we were only, a few minutes in, and all of a sudden I started to feel, my heart pounding and my heart racing, and had a hard time, catching my breath, and I was dizzy and lightheaded and basically just kind of panicking. And my husband had to help me out of there. And even when I was out, I couldn't really calm down right away. So he took me to the emergency room, because I still had all those symptoms and just couldn't calm down. And I kind of wondered with my heart if I was having like a heart attack or something, The doctor said that it wasn't a heart attack, and he just gave me some Xanax and said to continue taking that. And it's helped, but I've still had a few kind of less severe incidences since then. And I don't know, they're just starting to really kind of affect my life and my husband's life. And I don't know what to do about it.
So you described, at this concert, you had an episode where you felt really panicky, that your heart was racing, and sounds like you're really anxious about something. Was there something that happened? Was there something that you can remember that triggered those feelings?
I mean, not really. I think maybe it was just, it was a really big crowd, and it was loud and I'm not normally very claustrophobic, but I felt very closed in. And even when we tried to get out, that almost made things worse because, we had to push through people and kind of fight our way through. And I felt like it was, this never-ending mob of people that I wasn't going to be able to get out of. And I don't know, it all kind of made everything worse,
So it kind of,
until I could finally get out of there and get to a different place. And, the doctor helped calm me down and, kind of recenter me.
So it almost sounds like then maybe the crowd, the noise, almost feeling claustrophobic, but then later on almost feeling trapped, and that kind of snowballed.
Yeah, I would say that trapped is a good way to explain it, because, you know, I mean, everything was fine. The band started playing and it was great, but then, you know, my heart started pounding and my chest kind of hurt. And I was having a hard time breathing, and I was shaky and dizzy, and, you know, it was just all of a sudden it was too much. And, you know, I told my husband, I said, I need to get some air. We need to, you know, go somewhere. And he could see, you know, how affected I was. And he had to really, you know, push through the crowd, practically carrying me out of there, you know. So it was a pretty scary thing.
Now, if you think back earlier in your life, maybe in your childhood, can you recall any event in the past where you had an experience where you might have been trapped somewhere and unable to get free? Can you think of any situation like that?
I mean, I don't know for sure. I mean, I know there was a time in Girl Scouts where, you know, we were camping and hiking and stuff, and I do remember we were hiking up to a waterfall, and part of it was kind of through some caves, and I do remember it being very kind of closed in, and a couple of the other girls kind of got scared and started screaming, so it was like echoing in the cave, and, you know, we all tried to get out, and but I mean, I guess that's really the only thing I can think of. And I mean, it didn't really affect me very much then. It was kind of scary just because I was young, and, you know, the girl screaming inside a closed space. But yeah, I mean, I was pretty much okay after it had happened, and didn't even really think about it much until now.
So do you feel, you know, that now that we talk about that, can you see a comparison, maybe a little bit of some of those feelings of being trapped? Would you compare those two scenarios? The feelings being somewhat the same, maybe, or not really?
I mean, I think maybe a little bit, but it, like I said, you know, it was to a lesser extent, because, you know, the bigger thing was back when I was a kid and that happened was, you know, my ears were ringing because there were like 5 other girls screaming in a really enclosed space, and, you know, just really wanted to get out of there. And I think, you know, I was kind of short of breath, mostly because we were all trying to, you know, fight our way out and push our way out of this little cave. But I mean, that's all I can really think of being similar.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You mentioned the doctor prescribed Xanax, and, you know, that was kind of helping, you know, taking the edge off. Has there been anything else that you found helpful just to calm you down when you get those feelings?
I mean, I've tried to avoid situations where that could happen again. I've been really nervous about even just leaving the house and going out to places. So I try to make sure I take my Xanax before I'm going to go someplace. I found myself getting kind of, I mean, not as bad, but kind of that way at work, because I really struggle. I'm really not a good salesperson, you know, and I mean, I don't mind, I like helping people, but I don't like having to sell someone on a product and having to really push it on them, and the cold calls and stuff like that. That can just be too much for me sometimes. So honestly, I really just try to avoid situations as much as I can, but with the work-related ones, you know, I can't. So I'll just come home at the end of the day and just be completely drained and exhausted because I've just been so anxious and, I don't know, kind of crazy all day.
Mm-hmm.
But I really haven't found anything besides the Xanax that kind of calms me down.
Are there any other medications that you're currently taking or have taken in the past?
No, that's it.
Okay. And is is consumption of alcohol, is that something that you regularly consume, or?
Not really. Neither my husband nor I are, big drinkers or partiers or into that scene. Even, when we were at the concert, we had water bottles, because, I don't know. So, I mean, smoking, drugs, drinking, none of that's really our thing. Maybe a glass of wine once a month at the most.
Now, earlier in our conversation, you mentioned that you're a crafty person. Is that something that um, kind of calms you down, and just tell me about that part of your
Yeah, I mean, I guess that does kind of calm me down. Like I said, my husband likes to go hunting on uh, the weekends. So he gets up early in the morning and goes, and he's gone all day, sometimes overnight. And I just feel so much more comfortable staying at home, and I do a lot of crocheting and sewing projects and things like that. So, when he's gone and when I have time, if I have a day off or I get home early or something, that's kind of what I do to relax and take a breather from just the stress of everything that goes on in my daily life.
Now, when you said the stress of your everyday life, you're 20. You said you're 27. Have you been at this job for most of your career? Or how long have you been in this current position?
Um, I think I've been there a couple of years now. Yeah, about 2 years. And my background was kind of in marketing, and that's kind of more to where I wanted to go. And I got into this job because I was hoping I could work my way towards that. And they said that part of sales would be marketing. And so I thought, okay, I'll get to do a little bit of what I want and learn some other stuff too. And it's actually where I met my husband. He's an awesome salesman, and he loves the job. So, it just fits his personality really well. And, for the first year or so, I did okay with it. I think I was still kind of nervous just because I was new at it. But I've just found that I don't really like the sales part of things as much. And I like working with people, but like I said, I really kind of struggle. I feel like sometimes I'm forcing people to buy my products, and I get kind of anxious almost around people that I don't know well. So approaching people and doing these calls with, all sorts of people, it just makes me kind of nervous sometimes. And that's I kind of have these minor incidents when, I have to do that sometimes.
So you find it stressful being in a situation where you're working with people that you don't really know, and you feel pressure to make a sale, and it almost sounds like you feel guilty for trying to sell things to people. Am I hearing you right?
Yeah, I would say so. I think the biggest thing is just I don't feel like I'm very good at doing sales, and it just makes me really nervous. So the cold calls and contacting these strange people, and meeting them for the first time and saying, hey, you need to buy this because X, Y, and Z. It just makes me kind of nervous, and I kind of struggle with it. And I do feel a lot of pressure because my husband's definitely a perfectionist, and I mean, he's really good at the job. But, even in like our personal life, he's a perfectionist. He likes the house to be perfectly clean all the time. And, he would like it if I would just get up first thing in the morning and clean the house before work. but I kind of have a hard time getting out of bed just because I almost dread, what the day is going to bring.
Mm-hmm.
And so he, jumps up and gets ready because he's excited for the day. And, I'm not really looking forward to it. So it's kind of hard for me to get up and get going in the morning.
So you mentioned, I think you used the word good enough in relation to your sales position to really feel you're good enough. And then you mentioned also, it sounds like your husband is placing quite a few demands on you performance-wise. Could you talk to me a little bit more about some of your feelings around that?
Yeah, I mean, I understand as the wife that, yeah, a lot of that is my responsibility, but, we both work and, we work at the same place, so we have the same kind of workload and stress and things like that. Although I think I'm stressed more, like I said, because he enjoys it and I don't really. But yeah, I feel like I have to, everything has to be in perfect order for him. And so I try not to, even make a mess of the house at all. And so like on my crafting days, I try to make sure, if I know he's going to be gone all day and he's going to be back at like 8 o'clock, that, I get everything cleaned up and orderly and, the way it should be before he gets home, because I'm just afraid. I mean, it's not that he really gets mad at me necessarily. He's never, been overly angry or, physical or anything like that. But I know he says how he wants things to be and, tells me how he wants me to do things around the house. And so I try to make sure that I'm just meeting his standards and his expectations and keeping him happy.
And to kind of switch gears a little bit, can you tell me a little bit about when you were growing up, your family life? Because often how you grew up impacts your expectations for your own family. Would you be able to just share with me a little bit about your childhood growing up?
Sure. I mean, I had a fairly normal childhood. My parents got along well. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and my dad worked in construction. So, he worked a basically, 9-to-5 job. And I remember, because my mom was home all day, she would often clean the house and, cook and bake and do things like that. And so I guess I was kind of brought up thinking that's, what a woman should do. She should, clean the house and keep things tidy and things like that. Not any major family issues or anything. My parents are still together. So yeah, I mean, there was never any like emergencies that happened. And, my parents always treated me well. Yeah.
Do you have any siblings?
I have 2 brothers and a sister, and we're not super close. We all kind of live in different areas. We try to talk once or twice a month, and we might see each other, on holidays and stuff, but there's not a whole lot of pressure in our family to do that.
Where do you fall in the order?
Both of my brothers are older, and my sister is younger, so I'm kind of in the middle.
Are you all fairly close in age, or how spread apart are your ages?
My sister is only 2 years younger than I am. One of my brothers is a year older, and the other one is 3 years older. So we're all pretty close in age. And, when we were kids, because we were close in age, we kind of all played together and kind of had, a group of friends within the neighborhood and just kind of all stuck together, really.
So you're basically a year younger than your brother.
Yes.
Is that like 12 months or?
I think it's just over a year. Let's see, about a year and 3 months, maybe.
Okay. Now, what was your experience growing up? Did you find there was ever any favoritism between amongst your siblings, by your parents or?
I think my dad had put there was a lot of I don't know if I want to say favoritism. I mean, I think to a certain extent he favored the boys, but just because he was closer with the boys. And, the boys started working with him, as soon as they could. And it was basically decided that they would go on to take over the business and, stuff like that. And, that's what they ended up doing. And so I was never super close with my dad, but because I was the oldest daughter, anytime my mom was sick or, one time she had to go visit my grandma for something and, she was gone for a weekend, I was expected to kind of step into that role and care for my younger sister. My younger sister had a lot of health problems when she was younger, and she still does. So I think I always felt very motherly from a young age and had pressure put on me to be kind of a mother figure, even to the boys that were older than me. When they started working, they were, 13 maybe. And Dad said, you might as well be working too, so you need to help your mom out around the house. And when we come home at the end of the day, you and your mom need to make sure dinner's ready and the house is clean. And, because the boys and I are going to be tired from our day, and it's your responsibility to help your mom with those things.
So it sounds like your dad was maybe a little bit of a perfectionist. He put quite a few demands on you to more or less kind of meet his needs when he got home. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, he wasn't. I mean, he was fairly demanding, I guess. He was never overly mean, and wouldn't get super mad about things, but you could tell he was frustrated if he came home and there were still dishes in the sink or dinner wasn't on the table or things like that. And I heard him say to my mom once in a while, like, I've worked hard all day and I don't understand why the two of you couldn't have, or the three of you sometimes with my sister, couldn't have the house clean and everything set for the boys and I when we came home. And so he definitely did like the house being, spick and span, perfectly clean. So yeah, I guess he was kind of a perfectionist.
And how about did he ever take time with you more on a personal level? Do you feel like you had a close personal relationship with him in some way?
I mean, not necessarily just him and I, because whenever we would do things, it would be as a family, or it would be him and the boys, and mom and I and my sister. So yeah, I never felt super close to him, but I always knew he was my dad, and he cared for us. He took good care of us and provided for us, and he wasn't mean like some dads are, so I guess I never really thought much about it.
So it sounds like I get the feeling that maybe in some ways the boys in your family they held a little bit higher higher position in your family that your mom and the girls were kind of almost there to serve the men in the family? Is that, am I reading that right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, my dad would still let us kind of, have our own life and do what we wanted to and stuff. And didn't, when I started to get into, activities in school and stuff, he didn't really, he wasn't against it. But, he always said, make sure you have time to help your mom with chores, and you need to be home before dinner time so you can help make sure dinner's ready, and, things like that. But, since my sister was so medically fragile, a lot of the extra burden fell on me when my mom wasn't able to and she wasn't able to do everything, taking care of 5 of us on her own, that it wasn't easy. So, yeah, I was kind of more or less assigned to help her as much as possible. And I wouldn't say wait on the boys necessarily, but, when they got home for the day, Dad would always say, we want to relax. We want to kick off our shoes and relax on the couch, and it would just be easier if you guys already had this and this taken care of.
So we've talked about, that past experience a little bit. As you reflect on that, what ways do you think that might have influenced how you do your role now as a wife?
Well, I think I put a lot of pressure on myself. I mean, I know my husband puts some on me because he wants the house to be tidy. He often has people over, whether it's work related or, friends, his friends that he goes hunting with and things like that. So I guess I constantly feel the need to have everything in its place and kind of impress him and anyone that might come over. And I know that he is quite a perfectionist. If he doesn't do everything, though, if things don't go exactly the way he wants them to, he gets kind of frustrated about it. And so I know, when he just drops little hints about like, oh, you haven't cleaned the bathroom lately, even though it's not super dirty to me, that's a sign that he's saying, oh yeah, it is pretty bit, it needs to be done. Mm-hmm. And so I try to keep up on that stuff before he says anything. But, the last few months with these incidents happening more and more, I've just kind of fallen behind, and it's been hard to keep up with everything and keep him happy at the same time.
So you basically feels like your world is starting to close in on you, the demands of home, the demands of work.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I mean, I think this has always kind of been, there's always been a certain amount of pressure in our marriage, for me to keep the house tidy and things like that. And, a certain amount of pressure at work. And I guess it's just kind of almost been building up, and is just getting to a place where I am finally starting to really feel all of that. It feels like there's a lot of really heavy weight on my shoulders, and I'm responsible for a lot of things. And so I do feel a lot of stress and pressure and just nervousness, trying to keep everything organized and perfect in life.
So you've got a lot of, you mentioned crafting. So you've got a lot of areas that are bringing pressure to your life. And so the crafting is one area that helps to relieve stress, it sounds like. Are there other things, are you part of any social groups or religious activities that you participate in? Other things like that you find stress relief?
Well, I used to go to a once a week uh, kind of a crafty lady group. Um, but it's been hard going out of the house for anything other than work. So I haven't been going as often. I've just found that it's really kind of hard to be around a lot of people. And even though it's not necessarily an unfamiliar situation, I guess it's unpredictable to a certain extent. I'm not in control of it like I am at my house. So in order for that stuff to feel comfortable to me and relaxing, I feel that I have to be at my house doing things, my way and at my pace, to be able to really get the full benefit of it.
I see. Then, so it's basically, this crafting group that you meet with. Do you have any particular religious affiliations or things in that area?
No, my husband and I mean, I would say that maybe we're spiritual but not religious. We don't go to church, but we believe that there's something out there, that we try to believe in something, it's just kind of the decency of people and, having good morals and values and stuff like that.
You mentioned your husband, has people over from work, or friends. He likes to go hunting. Do you have a group of girlfriends that you hang out with, or friends as a couple that you do things together with on a regular basis?
I mean, not as much anymore. There was another lady at work that she was kind of my mentor when I started there, and she's a few years older than I am, and we would try to maybe go to coffee every now and then, and she wasn't crafty, so we didn't have a whole lot to do together. But lately, I don't know, I guess we've just both been busy and had other priorities and stuff. And I mean, then there were the craft ladies, and I wasn't, super, super close to them, but I guess I would consider them, friends and some more acquaintances. But really the only things I did, were our weekly meetings and, maybe going out to coffee once in a while with Gloria from work.
So maybe let me put it this way: if you were driving in town someplace and you ran out of gas, how many people would you say you have in your list of close friends that you'd feel comfortable calling them up and asking them to, help you over, pick you up, bring you gas or whatever? How many friends do you feel close enough to call in a situation like that?
I mean, really the only people that come to mind would be my husband and maybe Gloria. I guess those are the two people in my life that I'm closest to, or that, I know would be able to and willing to do that for me. A lot of the other, like, crafty ladies are either, kind of older and don't drive a lot, or, they kind of, I really just don't know them as well. I really feel like the only person I could call would be my husband, although I feel it would be very burdensome, to do that to him. But I don't know.
So it almost sounds to me like, you mentioned your family, that you call each other, you're friendly and everything, but you're not really close. And if I'm hearing you correctly, in a way, in a way, I get the sense that you almost feel like you're kind of alone. There isn't anybody that you really feel close to that you can really depend on. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I know I can depend on my husband to be there for me, and he's the person that I'm closest to because he's my husband. I live with him and we spend the most time together. But I don't really have a whole lot of friends, and yeah, I'm not very close with my family anymore, and we all live separate places, so we don't see each other a lot, or
Mm-hmm.
do things together, I guess.
Right. Okay. And then you'd mentioned your husband has a child from a previous marriage. Can you
Mm-hmm.
tell me a little bit about?
Well, my husband is quite a bit older than me. I'm 27 and he's 35. So he has a teenage son who lives with his ex-wife. They have a good relationship and they see each other maybe once a month or so. They go hunting and camping and to ball games and things like that. But his ex-wife has full custody and he's never really fought her for it. But they have a good relationship and they keep in touch, and he goes to his events and games and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any plans for yourselves as a couple to start a family?
I'm not really sure. I don't think he wants any more kids, honestly. He kind of hints that he doesn't. And I maybe in the future, but it just feels like it would be too stressful to try and have kids right now. And I mean, I don't want to push him to do it if he's really not for it. And I'm not someone that is desperate for kids either, because I basically have a son with my husband's son, and I kind of like life the way it is, just him and I.
So that's not an area of disagreement or anything. So you're pretty comfortably on that situation.
Yeah, I would say so.
You had mentioned this is your second marriage. Can you tell me a little bit about your first marriage, kind of how that came about, how long you were together and things?
Well, we were basically high school sweethearts. We dated for 3 years in high school, and right after we graduated, we decided to get married. And we both went to college, and he just got into the partying scene and just kind of became a different person, and we just, became more and more distant. And we married really young and hadn't had time to really figure out who we were. So we just ended up being very different people. And just after, we weren't married very long. I don't think we were married, let's see, maybe about a year, I think less than that, because we got married as soon as we graduated, and we were going through our divorce at the end of our freshman year of college. So, yeah, we just ended up, it just wasn't a good match, I guess.
How do you think that relationship has affected you? Are there any kind of highlights that you think you've either learned from that relationship, or maybe some things that, some regrets maybe that you have?
I mean, yeah, I would say I definitely learned from it. My biggest regret is honestly just going through with the marriage as soon as we did. because it was just one of those quick little courthouse weddings. We didn't really even invite anyone, and our family, my family wasn't really mad. They were just kind of, I think they were disappointed. They wanted something more for me. But I think we rushed into it, and even though we knew each other for 3 years, we were more different than we knew, because we knew each other as teenagers, and then when we tried to become adults and live on our own, I just found that didn't really work. And so I don't necessarily regret the marriage. I just regret how quick it was, and things just went downhill so fast that I don't know. I wish we would have. I wish we would have stayed together but not gotten married as soon, and maybe figured out that we were different people before getting married and going through all of that.
So with your current husband, how did that relationship develop? You mentioned you met him at work. How did that all come about?
Well, he had been working there for a couple years longer than I had. I guess he'd already been there about 5 years when I came on. And Gloria was one of my mentors. She just kind of took me under her wing. But he was kind of, I would say, my lead trainer. Mm-hmm. And our office doesn't have a policy about inter-office dating. And so, after I had been there a couple months and finished my training and things like that, he asked me out, and I said sure. And, so we just kind of started casually dating. And over the course of about a year of dating, got to know each other. And after about a year and a half, we decided to get married. We haven't been married all that long, actually, only about a year. So.
And how do your parents feel about, you mentioned your parents don't live very close, or is your husband involved much with your family, or not so much?
When we go for Christmas or things like that, he comes and he gets along with everyone, and, everything is fine. I wouldn't say he's like super close with, my dad or the boys, or, but we're just kind of that kind of family that we're not super close. Everyone kind of does their own thing. And, my husband and I are kind of the same way too. We do things together, but we have separate things that make us each happy, and we like our alone time.
So your husband feels fine with, you doing your crafting stuff and him going off hunting, and so you don't feel any pressure there that you need to participate in what he wants to do. You kind of both get your own space.
He's wanted me to go with him, but I told him that I'm just really not interested in that, and I don't like being around guns, and I don't like, I don't mind being outdoors, but I just don't like killing animals, and none of that is really my thing, and he obviously is not into the things that I'm into, so we just kind of have this unspoken agreement that Saturdays or Sundays or whatever, are alone days to kind of do our own thing. And, he's never said anything otherwise, that he doesn't like it, or, he hasn't pressured me too much to go hunting with him, because I've told him more than once that I don't want to. So I think he's just kind of taken it and said, okay.
He's fine with it.
Yeah, I think he likes his, his time. Like I said, he usually takes his son and, they do their thing, or he goes with friends from work or whatever. And so I think he just kind of likes having that time to himself.
Now, how does your husband feel about? So right now, you're both kind of in the sales field, and so he feels comfortable with you doing your own thing in your personal life on the weekends. How do you think he feels about you doing your own thing in the workplace? How do you think he'd feel if you said, you know what, this sales position just doesn't fit me?
I think he's always kind of pressuring me to keep up with it. He says, I've just been in it longer. I've been doing it longer than you have, and I have more practice at it. You just need to not give up. And he usually does more sales per week than I do. And anytime I tell him, I don't like it, I'm not sure, it doesn't really make me happy, he says, oh well, you just need to try harder, you really are good at it, just don't give up. And I think because we both work there and that's where we met, and everything kind of started, I think he likes that we work together, and he likes people to know that I'm his wife and that I also do that. But I think he wants me to do more. He wants me to be better at it than I am. And so I feel there's a lot of pressure to perform at work for him too. He expects a lot out of me, I guess. Especially because he's the one that did a lot of the training with me.
Mm-hmm.
He expects that I showed you exactly how to do it. So you should be doing it exactly like that, and you should be doing great and getting, as many sales a week as I am and things like that. And so I think I try not to talk about work with him too much at home, just because that's usually where it ends up going, that you just have to try harder, remember the things that I taught you, and just I do really well at this, so just basically try to be like me and live up to my expectations.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like this sales job is just it fits him like a glove, and he wants it to fit you also.
Yeah, I mean, I know that he wants me to be good at it. He wants me to be at his level, I guess. And I feel that he expects a lot of me, and I try to reach it, but since it's just not my thing, it's very hard to reach the bar that he's set for me. So I sometimes don't even really try, because I'm like, well, I'm not gonna reach his expectations. I'm just gonna do what I have to do for work, and that's it.
You mentioned your real love is marketing, or that's the direction you wanted to go. Have you discussed that with your husband? Maybe moving more in that direction.
A little bit when we were first together, but not so much since we've been married. It's been like, I trained you, and you're supposed to do this with me, and you're supposed to eventually get as good as I am. So he doesn't like marketing, and he doesn't understand that side of things as much. So and there has only been one open position, and I just didn't even really try for it, because I didn't feel like he would support me in going that direction. So yeah, I mean, I've just kind of stuck with sales and tried to make him happy, and just try to keep our bosses happy. And
I kind of asked this question earlier, and maybe I'll rephrase it a little bit. So when you were in that in that concert, and you felt trapped, or you felt like you couldn't get out of there. Was that the first time, or have you had other experiences other than you talked about that situation in the cave, but have you ever had those panicky feelings prior to that? A year earlier, or a couple of years earlier. Is that kind of?
I mean, not really. That was basically kind of, I would say, like the big incident that kind of started everything. I didn't even really think about that one as a kid until you mentioned it. But like I said, that one didn't really affect me as much. But ever since the concert, and I don't know, it makes me nervous to even think about going, to the supermarket when it's really busy, or, trying to go to a movie theater, things like that. So, like I said, I've had kind of the same things happen, just on a smaller scale. And it has been, when we've gone to the movies, or when I've been at the store and it's, been really packed, or even a couple of times in traffic, just all the noise, construction was holding us up. And so we were all really packed in there and just kind of felt like a can of sardines. And so I started to get that pounding in my chest, and the not all of the same feelings, but a little bit.
I'm curious. Have you ever you've had those feelings in a crowded area, or as you mentioned, have you ever had those feelings when you felt pressure from work and pressure from your husband at home, with those types of things kind of closing in on you, or has it been mostly in situations, as you mentioned, with the concert and traffic and supermarket?
I mean, I have kind of had those feelings happen either at work or just right after. I think it's kind of in the really high stress situations. So when there's a lot of pressure on, getting this one company to buy our software, or, like I'm going to someone for the second time and, they said they'd think about it, but we'd meet again, So when I feel there's a lot of pressure and a lot of stress on whatever it is, I do start to feel that way. And I kind of find myself, I'm even doing it now, just kind of wringing my hands, just thinking about, those situations, feeling the need to please everyone, and just, do, I guess, everything that's expected of me.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's very understandable. Then it sounds like you're trying to meet expectations you have for yourself. You're trying to meet your husband's expectations, your employer's expectations, and all that stuff kind of coming in on you. That creates a lot of pressure. That creates a lot of anxiety, and so I really appreciate just your openness with our discussion today, and we just getting to know each other. And this has been really helpful for me to get to know you, to get to hear about your family, and kind of where you're at this stage in your life. And I think it's been really helpful for me to be able to get a better picture of kind of what you're going through. And I think we'll end this session now, and I'm sure there's going to be some other questions that come out of this discussion that I'll have for you next time that we can talk about next time we meet. So,
yeah, I think I'd like to meet again at least a couple more times.
Well, I'm glad you made this step to come in and talk about it. That's a really encouraging thing, and hopefully this was helpful.
Yeah, I am too.
Thanks, Amanda.